Welcome to Conservative Sense by Stephen Flanagan, founder of the Conservative Society for Action, brought to you on the CSA Radio Network, where common sense and uncommon actions come together to save America. Thanks for joining me today on KLRN Radio, coming to you also on the Conservative Society for Action Radio Network. I'm Steve Flanagan. You know, it's interesting as I look around America today, there's so many competing interests and so many, political correct observations of what people think and how they think. Honestly, when you look at the media today, very rarely do I hear a report or hear a characterization of any kind of a group and believe it for a minute. This assertion that everybody needs to be part of a group, all this concept of identity politics, it is all designed for political purposes. The next time you think that we're in total discord in this country, the next time you think that everybody's at each other's throats, the next time you think that Group A can't get along with Group B, go to the local airport or something like that where there's thousands and thousands of people in the same room. I recently flew from Orlando to New York, and there was some flight delays, and the lines were got to be a quarter mile long. I mean, it was running all the way down one end of the airport to the other. And there was every single language, every single race, every single nationality, every single age, every single gender, all in the same room at the same time, all trying to do the best they can to get where they needed to go. People were talking to each other, people were sharing information with each other, people were pointing out directions to complete strangers. This whole concept that we're in total disarray as a country is really just politically motivated. I'm kind of sick and tired of it. Just wanted to throw that one out there because it does bother me. And the next time you talk to somebody, especially some of these younger people who seem to be dominated by the media, just tell them once in a while, instead of watching what's on television, maybe they should look around their neighborhood, look around where they work, look around their school, and see how people actually do get along. Sure, there's bad neighborhoods, sure, there's places that might be dangerous and those types of things, but by and large, most Americans are very tolerant. They get along with other people just fine. Of course, that brings me on to this other thing. There always is this divide going on about young people, the older generation, etc. Well, I'm one of the older generation. I've got kids in the younger generation, and I work with people in the younger generation. And, I worry sometimes that they allow these things to, become reality to them. And, listen, everybody has their own reality, and if you allow it to be your reality, then it will be. One of the things that bothers me, however, is this assertion by many, many people, not just young people, the Bernie Sanders of the world and others who are trying to gain power. They talk about government. Government should be the solution. Government is the solution for this. Government is the solution for that. Somehow, if we increase the power of the federal government, somehow all our problems will go away. Now, for those of you who remember, I want to play a little clip for you of a great American that had something to say about that. Now, I'll play that clip and we'll talk about it in a minute.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem. From time to time, we've been tempted to believe that society has become too complex to be managed by self-rule, that government by an elite group is superior to government for, by, and of the people. Well, if no one among us is capable of governing himself, then who among us has the capacity to govern someone else?
Of course, that was Ronald Reagan, president at his inaugural address in 1980. As some will recall, if you're old enough, the economic policies under the Reagan administration ended up creating the longest economic expansion in the history of the United States. So, some interesting policies went on there. One of the policies that was carried on, one of the policies that seemed to be successful during that period of our American history, was a concept at the time called deregulation. Now, everybody's talking about regulate this, regulate that these days, but back then there was a belief that many industries were overregulated and that they were stifling competition. And one of those industries happened to be the trucking industry in the United States. And one of the things that happened in the late 70s and the 80s is that a piece of legislation was passed that resulted in the deregulation of the trucking industry.
Now, at the time, the Interstate Commerce Commission, which by the way no longer exists, regulated transportation in the country so that a trucker had to have a specific route certificate in order to run product from one market to another. And they also had a certificate for the type of product. What happened then is only a limited number of truckers were available for any particular market, and because of the costs involved, larger companies were dominating those markets. It was almost like a New York City medallion where you had to buy a certificate and you were the only one that could run that load. Now, obviously that reduced the number of companies, the number of truckers that were available to service any type of delivery. And that seemed to be, it just seemed that it was a mess. It was a mess. There was a cost increase by government protecting companies. They were protecting profits. And basically it was another case of crony capitalism back in the day. But one thing did happen. There was a deregulation of the trucking industry. And at that particular time, it meant that independent truckers, that is individual truck owners, could actually get into the marketplace and they could bid their services to any particular shipper. Now, the result of that is that more and more companies came in, more and more truckers came in, and there was more and more competition in the marketplace. And guess what? Costs went down. Costs went down as competition went up. Not only that, but we had the opportunity for many small businesses to start to grow. As a direct result of the deregulation of the trucking industry, now remember how important trucking is to the country. Virtually every product that you buy in any kind of a store, whether that's a food product, hard product, soft goods, whatever, most of it has been transported to your location. And 90% of that's done through trucking, probably 95%. If you can reduce the cost of trucking, you thereby reduce the cost of everything. And that's exactly what happened in 1980 with the deregulation of the trucking industry. And just some of the other things. By the way, that was called the Motor Carrier Act of 1980. And it was it resulted in the deregulation of the industry. And basically the result was more efficient companies that passed the savings on to the consumer. Now the consumer in this case would be a company that's transporting product. The removal of the antitrust aspects led companies to be more competitive and innovative in the marketplace because they had to compete and they had to remain profitable. Companies were forced to keep a lower profit margin, and also with the addition of the act, licenses for truckers increased almost 3 times, meaning jobs. In addition to that, on the small business side, more than 70,000 new companies started up as a direct result of the deregulation of the transportation industry in 1980. Anyway, that's just a little history lesson on deregulation, getting government out of the way so that the marketplace could work. And again, that was one of the major contributors to 9 years of sustained economic growth in this country in the 1980s and early 90s. We'll be back soon. Thanks for listening.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Do you need a car? Been shopping only to be turned down because of bad credit, low credit, no credit, bankruptcy, or divorce? Guess what? Today's your lucky day, because now you can buy a car, truck, or SUV, just about any vehicle. It's true. Bad credit doesn't matter. No credit doesn't matter. Bankruptcy or divorce, it just doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, your job is your ticket to your new vehicle. We're Auto Credit Express, and we've helped thousands of people just like you. Antonio H. told us, great company, got me connected, and the day I went in, I drove off in the car I wanted. 100% worth your time. Need a car? Get started now and drive off as early as today. Just text FINANCE, FINANCE, to 357-911 right now to get started. That's FINANCE, FINANCE, to 357-911. Auto financing the easy way. Text FINANCE to 357-911.
This is firefighter Rafael Porriet from Firehouse Subs. Introducing new Firehouse Pairs. Pair your favorite small sub with a signature side, like the awesome 5-cheese mac and cheese. And remember, a portion of every purchase at Firehouse Subs goes towards helping first responders. Firehouse Subs. Enjoy more subs, save more lives. Participating locations only, Firehouse Subs will donate a minimum of $1 million in 2019 to the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation by donating 0.11% of every purchase.
Welcome back to Conservative Sense on the CSA Radio Network.
This is Steve Flanagan coming to you on KLRN Radio and the Conservative Society for Action Radio Network. By the way, I just want to thank Sergeant Dave over at Never Forgotten Memorials for his work on behalf of veterans, and also for his allowing CSA to come on to this network and share some of the thoughts that we've been discussing. Thanks a lot, Dave. Look forward to hearing your show a little later. You know, in our first segment, we talked about deregulation, government interference in business, and how it's been disruptive. We discussed in a previous show about how the Congress of the United States got involved in the mortgage business and essentially caused the housing meltdown and crisis of 2008 that required that massive bailout. There's some other things going around in the news that maybe a lot of people don't understand, and honestly, I'm still learning a bit myself. We've heard a lot about tariffs recently. We've heard a lot about how Donald Trump is using tariffs as a means to, I guess, influence the Chinese to do what's right, or at least that's what we think that they should be doing is right. And there's a long history with that. There's a long history of tariffs. There's a long history of how countries in the world have used tariffs and trade barriers in general as a means to control marketplaces in their countries. Now, I'll tell you, I have a long history of working in trade journalism. I was the editor and publisher of a newsletter called Meat Industry Insights. Yes, meat as in meat and poultry. We wrote about industry issues relative to the North American meat and poultry industry. You know, back in those days, and actually up until, currently and even today, there were a lot of people who produced agricultural products in the United States, pork, beef, corn, other types of agricultural commodities, and they had a world market. They marketed their things in China, they marketed their things in Korea and Japan and Canada and a host of other countries around the world. I would say at least monthly, we would get a story about some country that decided that it wanted to protect its pork producers or its corn growers or its beef producers. And what they would simply do is either drop a tariff on American agricultural goods to reduce distribution in their countries, thus protecting their producers, or they would come up with some type of other trade barrier. Now, a trade barrier could be something very simple. A lot of times they will say that, there was a disease in a flock of American cattle or hogs in Iowa, and therefore we are going to suspend the importation of American hogs and cattle. And that was it. And there was nothing that the American producer could do. Now, a lot of these producers relied on the foreign market for distribution of their product. And routinely, and numerous times a year, with many countries around the world, these types of trade barriers would be put into place. Now, we would always complain, and we would call the trade minister of Japan or Canada or China and say, hey, what's going on? There's no reason for this particular thing to be done. The disease that you're talking about was very local. It was eradicated, and there's virtually no impact on the product going overseas. They just didn't care. And the reason they didn't care is because the intent was not to protect their consumers. Their intent was to block American products going into their countries. I watched that for 30 years, reported on it month after month after month. It was very distressing. It was very unfair. It was something that needed to be addressed. Of course, succeeding administrations, Congresses, just did nothing about it. Our trade representatives spoke until they were blue in the face. We got nowhere. Now, there are a lot of people who look at Trump and say, hey, what the heck is he doing? Trade barriers, tariffs, things like that. You have to look at the original origin of why a lot of these unfair trade tariffs and restrictions took place in the first place. A lot of this has to do with post-World War II politics. After the Second World War was over, America was pretty much in the business of rebuilding the world. Our foreign aid went everywhere. Japan, Germany, all of Europe, you just name it. Any place in the world that was affected by war, the U.S. was in there trying to help those countries, prop them up. It's amazing what happened with the Marshall Plan in Japan. It was just an amazing and big stimulus for the world. Now, one of the ways that we did that is we built up ways to create trade. Now, the Japanese were a perfect example. The Japanese had a decimated industry as a result of the war, and we decided to open up our markets to cheap Japanese products, which we did. And I just have a feeling that over the years, it went on and on and on, and the unfair balances of trade just continued. And after many decades, they simply became accepted. So now you have a lot of people who are saying, well, Trump is doing this and doing that as far as trade barriers are concerned, and he's the first one to do that. And who does he think he is? Well, I, for one, having been closely involved with a lot of the industries that were involved in foreign trade, am extremely happy that finally, somebody in this country is standing up to the unfair trade restrictions that have been taking place in the world. Now, we know China is a big part of that, simply because of the size of their marketplace and the raw number of products that we take into our country. Japan is another one. Korea, believe it or not, has had many restrictive types of barriers on American products. All of it is unfair. And if we are going to have a true world economy, which is what everybody seems to talk about, and then that's also how they justify that we should not have tariffs, but they do not, when they're talking about those things, explain the inequities and why the U.S. should be on the short end of the stick in virtually every one of these deals. I applaud President Trump for having the guts to stand up after 30 or 40 or 50 years of unfair trade practices by the rest of the world at the expense of U.S. producers, U.S. companies, and, quite frankly, U.S. workers. Watching the number of businesses in the last 30 years leave the United States of America for other shores was a horrible thing to watch. U.S. was an industrial giant, and basically we were decimated. Our industrial base and our industrial output was reduced. And even though we have the most prolific agriculture industry in the world, sales of that industry were restricted by unfair business practices. So I just want to say, on behalf of members of the Conservative Society for Action, that we applaud President Trump's actions on trying to balance trade and trying to make sure that that trade is fair so that American workers and American companies have a level playing field in the world. We'll be back in a couple of minutes with more on Conservative Sense.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now. 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 $3 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
You're listening to Conservative Sense by Stephen Flanagan on the CSA Radio Network.
Welcome back. I want to take the last segment of our show to discuss another issue that is making a lot of headlines and is extremely controversial and has been going on for decades. And that has to do with immigration, illegal immigration, sanctuary cities, etc. Now, just recently, the Florida State Legislature passed a ban on sanctuary cities. The bill passed pretty good in the State House by 68 to 45 and in the State Senate 22 to 18. It requires state entities, local governmental entities, and law enforcement agencies to use best efforts to support the enforcement of federal immigration law and prohibits restrictions by the entities and agencies on taking certain actions with respect to information regarding a person's immigration status. The bill also authorizes law enforcement agency to transport an alien unlawfully present in the United States under certain circumstances. Now, that's just what's happening down in Florida. It's happened in other states. As a matter of fact, there are other states that have anti-sanctuary city legislation. That includes Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Georgia, Iowa, Mississippi, Missouri, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas. There are also states that are pro-sanctuary city. Those include California, Connecticut, Illinois, Massachusetts, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Washington State. So, obviously, this is an issue that is dividing the country. There's pro-sanctuary city, and there's anti-sanctuary city. What's the right answer? Well, first of all, we need to get to the bottom of what is really happening in this country. Number one, immigration is good for the United States. I have no problem making that statement. Immigration is important to the United States. We need it to enhance our population. We need it to enhance the workforce. And we simply need it to keep basically the health of our country intact. Now, again, I look at history as a reason for making that statement. You know, my ancestors came to this country from a couple of foreign countries, including Ireland and Italy. They came here legally. They came here to be good Americans. They came here for opportunity. They came here to escape oppression. In the case of my Irish ancestors, they came here to escape starvation. And you look at some of the history of what happened back then during the potato famine and things, it was pretty bad. 1 out of 3 Irish died, and another 1 out of 3 left the country. It was devastating. But they came here to America, the land of opportunity, and they made it best for themselves. So I'm all for immigration. But I'm against illegal immigration. And a lot of people seem to think that there's no difference. But there is a big difference. Illegal immigration is bad for the U.S. for a number of reasons. It's clear. The cost in taxes to taxpayers, legal paying taxpayers, is enormous. The cost of health care and police, medical, etc., is large in the places where there are large illegal immigrant communities. It's bad for our neighborhoods. There's an assault on our neighborhoods. If you look at some of the places, most notably San Francisco and others, tent cities are piling up all over the place. It just is wrong. It's wrong in so many ways, yet for political purposes, these people want to have that going on. There also seems to be a move to make illegal citizens able to vote. That's flat out wrong. Needs to be stopped. Unfortunately, there's a lot of politics involved with this. I think the politics of the left likes to assume that because people are Hispanic, that somehow being against illegal immigration is an assault on the Hispanic community. We know that that's not true. Especially on the conservative side, we know that's not true. There is a large and growing Hispanic middle class. A lot of them are here, most of them are here legally. They work hard, they take care of their families, and a lot of them have conservative values. So, we welcome the Hispanic community into the community of conservative thought. There are a couple of other realities. This whole concept that somehow, President Trump wants to throw all illegals out of the country. First of all, it can't happen. It's an enforcement issue. There are not enough law enforcement people in this country to deport every single illegal citizen. It's not going to happen. So that's another reality. So these people are here. They're going to continue to be here, and they're going to continue to be here illegally. So what can we do? Number one, the Congress of the United States does have to act. They have to make sure that the path to citizenship is a clear path. They have to take some of the limitations on legal immigration and make those numbers larger. We have to allow a larger number of people to come here and be here legally. I think it's important that we pursue those policies. But if you really want to take care of the issue, some people talk about putting up a wall. A wall supposedly is supposed to keep out people illegally. I'm not sure if that's the case. I know in certain places that's important. There are certain places where crossings are substantial, and perhaps a wall is a solution there. But wall-to-wall Mexico is not going to stop illegal immigration. The only way to stop illegal immigration is to change the circumstances in this country. There are two people breaking the law when an illegal is working a job. The illegal immigrant is here illegally, and the company that's hiring that person is also breaking the law. Now, if you want to really, honestly, clear up the illegal immigration issue in this country, then you have to dry up the demand. Unfortunately, there are many businesses that rely on illegal workers. The restaurant trade, basically the landscaping trade, a lot of other trades out there where low-cost workers are important. And it's obvious that the business community seems to take advantage of that, and they will continue to take advantage of it as long as there is the supply. So what can we do? I would suggest that we make the hiring of an illegal immigrant a federal offense that has substantial penalties. If businesses in this country start paying penalties and fines because they are hiring illegal immigrants, then guess what? They will stop hiring illegal immigrants. They will start hiring legal ones. Two things will happen. Number one, the demand for that job is going to remain. It's going to be pretty much a low-cost job. So you're going to have someone at an entry level or somebody who wants to fill that position. If a currently illegal immigrant thinks that they need to have a green card or whatever else they need in order to work legally in this country, in the jobs that they're used to holding, they will go out and seek those legal remedies. Businesses, if they are held accountable and businesses decide or are forced at this particular point to hire just legal people because the penalties are so high, then we will solve this issue. Now, I'm not holding my breath. I'm not holding my breath because the Congress of the United States has been dealing with this issue for decades and seems to want to keep this out there as a political football. I think the liberals in this country want to continue their policy of group and identity politics. They're trying to generate votes, and they're using these people as pawns in that fight. I don't think most Hispanics in this country are falling for it. There's a large, growing, and successful Hispanic middle class in this country, and I think they're pretty smart. As we look at some of the results from polls and others, there's significant support for the ban on illegal immigration. In either case, this is something that needs to be solved. I think if we deal with business side, we have a political solution, make it easier to become a citizen in the long run, I think we can solve this issue. Anyway, that's all for today. We'll be back and see you soon.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your healthcare? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their healthcare. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your healthcare, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your healthcare while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans. 30% of Americans who are planning home improvements of $5,000 or more will pay for those renovations with a high-interest credit card. That may not be a great idea. A better idea may be to take cash out of your home with a Quicken Loans 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. The rate today on our 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is 4.5%, APR 4.78%. Call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
Rate subject to change. Pay 2% fee to receive this discounted rate. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.